Hello, everybody. This is the Overwatch Overview, so I'm going to give you a little bit of context about the game, a little bit of context about our classes and team composition, and then just a few other, various things. So, what is Overwatch in a sense? So, a lot of this is probably straightforward or things you already know, but hopefully we can all get on the same page. So, Overwatch is a 6v6 objective-based team shooter. So players use tactics, mechanics, and map knowledge, and I would say also team composition to outmaneuver and outplay their competition. So how does it differ from other shooters, or I would just say MOBAs would be the other possible thing you could say. So there's no economy system, so players choose a character, and the only thing that really changes is the character has cooldown effects that have a certain timer on them, and then ultimate that charges up, and then once it's used has to recharge. But there's no other economy system. You're never going back to farm gold. There's no minions or ads that have at the bottom, but those parts of MOBA are not there. There is hero switching mid-game. Now, similar to if you were to queue into a match on Quick Play for Overwatch right now, you do choose a class, either damage support or tank, and you stay within that class. So this is the same way. We always have 2 tanks, we always have 2 supports and 2 healers. We never have more than that of each class. So there are 3 classes I just mentioned. We'll get into the specifics about those, but there's tanks, damage, and support. So, and there's the modes objective based as opposed to lanes and tower gameplay. There are lanes, I guess, in the sense of the map is not literally one pathway the whole way, but it ends up playing a little bit differently. So, classes. The first heroes are damage heroes. So they're responsible for seeking out, engaging, and defeating the enemy using their various tools, abilities, and playstyles. So when I click on that, it actually gives me all the damage heroes. Actually, it gives me all the heroes if you'd like to explore this. This is just playoverwatch.com. So I can click on that and get an idea of not just the hero. Once I click on them, I can get what their abilities look like, what they actually are at the bottom, and then what their difficulty level is, so you can kind of get an idea of how they play. This is super important. So we're going to talk about all the different types of classes, but within damage heroes, there really ends up being 2 main types that we're going to have, and that's a main damage and an off damage is the way I would classify it. I'm sure there's a better classification, but so we have certain. Or you could even say mobile DPS and stationary DPS. So, for instance, the easiest ones to show are Genji. So, Genji is a hero. Their main attack is Shuriken. So, they can either throw 3 Shuriken in the same area, like 1, 2, 3. So, it's like a straight on, like a 3-round burst, or they can throw them sideways, and it sort of does a little triangle and hits in 3 different spots, right? So he either has a more short-range, wider attack or a narrow, long-range attack. But he, obviously, with some of his different things like Swift Strike and Dragon Blade, is a more mobile hero. He's meant to move around and shift. Compare that to a character like, for instance, Bastion would be the best example, or Torbjorn in this case. So Bastion has a recon mode, so he can move around a little bit, but he is most powerful when he reconfigures himself and he switches to his stationary mode, where he's his sentry, where he has his little mounted minigun and is much more deadly. So he's much more deadly in his stationary form than he is in his recon form. So he's someone who we'd want to pair up, with someone who's going to stay stationary and sort of hold a place or a point. So take some time whenever you're looking at this to look at some of these heroes. A lot of the damage heroes play really, really differently. Some are very good at poking the enemy and just sort of slowly chipping away damage. Some of them are really good at high burst damage. So that what burst damage would be is the amount of damage you can inflict in a short period of time. So they're really good at taking out a hero or finishing off a hero because of their high burst damage. And some of them fit multiple roles. So just an idea of what damage heroes are. Next, we have our tanks. So Tanks specialize in protecting allies, disrupting enemies, not allies, and occupying the front line. They have high survivability and abilities that protect themselves and others with shields and crowd control. So our tank heroes, get rid of this one. Our tank heroes we have a very short list. So D.Va, Ariza, Reinhardt, Roadhog, Sigma, Winston, Wrecking Ball, and Zarya. And so with tanks, this one becomes a little bit more clear. We have main tanks and off tanks. So the main tanks that I would say are Ariza, Sigma, Reinhardt, and Winston. The reason they are main tanks is all four have some sort of shield function that can benefit their team. So they're one-way shields. So they'll, depending on the way the character works, they'll place their shield or use their shield, and your teammates can shoot through them, but the other, it absorbs damage the other way. So enemies shoot into them, it absorbs the damage, but your damage passes through towards the enemy. So the stereotypical one of these is Reinhardt. So Reinhardt's damage weapon is a rocket hammer that he can swing back and forth. He does have a charge ability that pins and kills DPS characters and more squishy characters, those with less health. He also has a fire strike that's like a range attack, but his main thing is he has his hammer and he has his barrier field. So our allies can shoot through that, and he can obviously block that as well. So gives you sort of an idea of what he is. He would be a main tank. So he'd be someone who would be sort of taking up the front line, taking damage, dishing it out, trying to brawl, trying to help us win team fights. So base that compared to a character like D.Va or Zarya. Let's say D.Va. Zarya pairs well, but D.Va being the main one. D.Va has a little mech that she controls that has dual little fusion cannons that are great in short range. She obviously, if she gets knocked, if her mech blows up, she goes out and she has her little light gun, but she's obviously way more beneficial in her mech. She would be an off tank, and what we would use her for is she would be someone who, whether it's pestering the enemy, whether it's sneaking around to find a flank to take out individual enemies, her whole mindset is based on trying to absorb damage while dishing it out more. She's more on the dishing it out as opposed to Reinhardt's more on the absorbing damage. So she's good at taking out individual players. So tanks are really, really survivable, but they focus on taking damage for the other team and sort of poking them, sort of letting our DPS characters, our damage characters, do the work, right? So just a few other ones you could look at as well. They all play differently. If you're using a Winston or a Wrecking Ball, you're using somewhat what we call a dive tank. So they're able to, so if you think of the front line, our main tanks are battling it out. Dive tanks are able to jump in behind the back line and kill the support characters, which we'll talk about next, as well as DPS. So when we talk about team fights, we have main tanks, we have off tanks, and then within off tanks, we have dive tanks. So we'll talk about support characters next. So the objective as a support character is to heal, buff, and or provide utility to the team. Support heroes boost their overall performance of their team by increasing their survival, speed, and damage output. They are generally not good duelists and are best surrounded by teammates. So support characters are generally not always, but generally not good duelists. So they're not meant to deal out a ton of damage. So we have a few different ones we can look at. Support is one of the smallest classes as far as characters. So the stereotypical healer, the day one Overwatch character was Mercy. So she has a Caduceus staff. I don't know exactly how to say that. And it has two functions. So if you click with your if you click with your left mouse button, showing my Xbox, my prior Xbox experience. If you click with your left stick, you heal, and if you click with your right mouse button, you power buff, so you can buff your allies' damage. So that's her main function. She is a character that is incredibly mobile. She has a guardian angel where she's able to sort of zoom her way towards people, and she has a resurrect ability where she can bring people back to life. Those are her main functions that make her super strong as a character. and a really good healer because she can stay with tanks and it can sort of remain mobile so she can't get picked off as easily. She does have a blaster that she can use, but she's not great in a fight. She can obviously dish out some damage, and if a player's really low, she could probably take them out, but she's obviously not one that you want to be high in eliminations. So contrast that with someone like Lucio. Lucio, not that he can't heal, but his main thing is a sonic amplifier. He uses this to obviously shoot, but also to heal and to boost movement speed. So if we have characters that are slower, he's really good at using his DJ abilities to heal and to buff the team's speed, so they can continue the fight. So you can look at some of his different abilities. There are some characters that can fill sort of a DPS slash healing role. Baptiste is one that's great because he has a few different things that's really nice. So he has a biotic launcher that either fires a 3-round burst for damage or it fires a grenade for healing. So he's really good at being a fairly mobile character for how far he can shoot. He has a regenerative burst that can heal a bunch of health. He also has one of the most OP things in the game, which is an immortality field. So it basically keeps everyone's health, as you can see on this thing, it keeps everyone's health at a certain point, so they can't die when they're in the immortality field. So then he has amplification matrix, which is essentially just a let me see what it does exactly. Doubles the damage of healing effects that are friendly projectiles that pass through it. So it doubles the damage that you can use. So it's kind of a cool thing that he can use. So that's just sort of an idea of some of our heroes and what they might do. There's other ones like I didn't mention, like Ana and Brigitte and Moira and Zenyatta, and for the damage there's hundreds, or not hundreds, but a ton that I didn't see. So please look at these and sort of feel out where you're at as far as your particular role once we talk about those. But that's mainly it. The only other thing that I didn't talk about that we'll have to kind of get into, which is just the types of game modes that we might be dealing with. Really, to be honest, those are pretty straightforward, and they're not terribly hard to figure out. So when we get into them, playing them is the best way to understand them. So I'm not going to talk about them too much for the moment. But yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know. You can look up all of the maps on Play Overwatch as well. And have a great day. We'll see you on Wednesday.